Hi there everyone, Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth, and another attack has occurred in Europe. This one not as extreme as what we've seen in France, which has already been devastating for them in more ways than one. A knife-wielding man attacked several people at a British tube station, slitting one man's throat, leaving him in serious condition. The British police are unarmed, and they were unable to do anything but to try to contain the attacker. And when the man ended up stabbing someone else, one of the police officers eventually shot him with his taser, and the attacker fell to the ground, and at that point he was arrested. Now, he reportedly shouted, "All of your blood will be spilled, and this is for Syria," as he went about this rampage. Now, why is this significant? Well, Britain has recently begun its bombing raids over Syria in retaliation of what happened in France in November. And thus, the cycle of violence continues, where violence is just being met with more violence. And it certainly plays into the power elite's plans. It's keeping people afraid and unarmed and depending on their governments for safety. Yet in this case, the British police were also unarmed. So if the attacker was packing more heat, not even the police would have been able to stop him. The attacker, Muhaddin Maher, is a 29-year-old Muslim from East London who's now being labeled as being involved with a terrorist incident. Richard Walton, head of the Metropolitan Police's Counter-Terrorism Command, said the threat from terrorism remains at severe, which means that a terrorist attack is highly likely. Folks, this could very well be just the beginning of a series of attacks that is likely going to empower the state and alienate the so-called moderate Muslims and then set the stage for another world war. And how much of this would have been possible without the 9/11 attacks? Well, none of it. With that false flag, the stage was set to sell the war on terror and to continuously intervene in the Middle East without any real public backlash. So we've been sold this picture that it's our duty to bring about democracy to the world, just like it's ISIS's duty to bring about this one world Islamic state. Now, in this tube station knife attack, once the police officers arrested the guy, the crowd started shouting, "You ain't no Muslim, bruv, you ain't no Muslim, bruv." And this has spawned a hashtag and reinforced this narrative that there is such a thing as peaceful, moderate Muslims. Now, there are people who subscribe to Islam and live in the West and remain as peaceful as your average Christian. I mean, of course, there are peaceful Muslims. But of course, they are not Muslims who are actually following the Quran. Some will say, well, how is that any different from any Christian values of old from the West? Well, for the Christian, there's a new covenant with God through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. A lot of the Old Testament laws of the Israelites are no longer applicable because Christ changed all that by taking it upon himself so that the world might be saved through him. If you actually read Jesus' words or Paul's letters or virtually anything in the New Testament, you'll see that there is no call to violently spread the word of Christ. There are passages that are going to rub up against some of the worldviews of secular people, but Christians aren't out beheading homosexuals and murdering people who've left the faith or perpetuating a real rape culture against women. Islam, on the other hand, has always violently opposed dissent. They've always spread their beliefs through conquest and war. The Christian Crusades are just a tiny part of history. The violence of Islam has been here since its beginnings. Nations like the US and Canada that were founded on Christian morals have actually been so welcoming to other ideas that now, generations after our founding, many of us have become secularized. People are now talking about keeping the words God or the Ten Commandments away from any government building or school. But Sharia law? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, you're not xenophobic, are you? You know, you can't murder people in the name of Christ. That defeats the purpose. And really, the argument that some Muslims are peaceful is irrelevant. Of course, most Muslims are peaceful. But if you want to see an epic takedown of this way of thinking, check out Bridget Gabriel's response to this video here. I'll include a link in the description. Meanwhile, academia and the establishment and even YouTube comments are routinely labeling Christianity as a problem, while calling you a racist or a bigot or Islamophobe for even questioning whether Islam really is a religion of peace. Granted, an end to the war on terror will go a long way to establishing good relations with the Middle East, but first, we need to recognize that Islam has never been compatible with Western values. But of course, since the cultural Marxists have taken over here, I mean, how much of our Western values now are really worth keeping? The rule of law and respect for private property are now things of the past. I mean, people really need to rediscover the traditions that laid the foundations for our culture, and it begins with, like it or not, Christianity. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're a new viewer. We're going to have more coverage as this continues to come in. And leave your comments and let me know what you think. And check the links in the description for all the sources to this video and to learn how you can support our work here at PFT. And stay tuned, guys. We've got a lot more videos coming soon to pressfortruth.ca.